What if I told you that of the patriotic people you'll meet today, one is someone whose parents had to pay thousands of dollars just for the chance to legally call America home? And what if that same person could relay to you something about gratitude that might change completely how you see this country? Welcome to Lonest Night. I'm your mysteriously anonymous host, broadcasting from the shadows because in a world obsessed with fame, where your breakfast needs a ring light and your dog has an Instagram account, I've chosen to stay in the beautiful anonymity of the radio era. Call me old-fashioned, but I believe the story matters more than the storyteller. Think of me as your friendly neighborhood voice in the static, floating through the airwaves to share conversations that matter. Today is July 4th, and while you're probably hearing fireworks and smelling barbecue smoke drifting through your windows, I want to share something a little different. Not the typical flag-waving anthem or the cynical takedown, but something in between, something real. It's a story of someone who chose this country rather than simply being born into it. A story about gratitude, privilege, and why putting a flag on your porch doesn't automatically make you a political extremist. But before we dive in, if this resonates with you, I need you to do something for me. Hit that subscribe button because these stories deserve to be heard. Share with someone who needs to hear it. And most importantly, drop a comment with your own story because the best conversations happen when we all contribute to the dialogue. So grab your favorite beverage, coffee, tea, or that suspiciously patriotic red, white, and blue mocktail that you've been perfecting. And let me tell you about the journey that taught me what it really means to call America home. The Great Immigration Adventure. Picture this: a family sitting around a dinner table somewhere far from here, making a decision that would change everything. Not because they were running from war or persecution, but because they dared to dream of something more. Those were my parents, about 3 decades ago, staring at a mountain of paperwork that looked more intimidating than assembling IKEA furniture. And trust me, that's saying something. You see, I'm what they call a naturalized citizen, which sounds fancy, but really just means I chose America after experiencing life elsewhere. I immigrated here after high school, and let me tell you, if you think applying to college is stressful, try applying to an entire country. The process was like running an extremely expensive bureaucratic marathon. First, there were the medical exams, and not just any medical exams, oh no. You had to go to specific doctors approved by the U.S. Embassy. It was like being part of some exclusive club, except the membership fee could buy you a small car. At the time, of course. And instead of getting a fancy jacket, you got a stamp in your passport, eventually. My parents would joke that we were getting the premium health screening package, whether we wanted it or not. Every test you could imagine, and a few that you couldn't. Then came the interviews, multiple interviews, and at different stages, each one costing money they had carefully saved. It was like a game show where the grand prize was the right to start over from scratch in a new country. Congratulations, you've won the opportunity to abandon your career and begin again. But here's where the story gets really interesting, and where my parents proved they were braver than I ever gave them credit for. See, they originally thought they could send my brother and me to America while they just stayed behind, continuing their comfortable middle-class corporate jobs. Plot twist: the green cards were only valid if our parents actually moved to the U.S. too. So there they were, faced with a choice that would make even the boldest among us pause. Quit stable jobs, leave everything familiar, start over in their 40s in a country where their decades of work experience suddenly counted for about as much as monopoly money. And they did it. They actually did it. My father, who had built a respected career over decades, went back to school for an MBA just to be considered for jobs he was already qualified to do. Student loans in his mid-40s. My mother did the same. They transformed from established professionals to graduate students overnight, studying alongside kids young enough to be their children. I used to think this was just what parents do, but now I realize what an incredible leap of faith it was. They bet everything on a country so far away for children who couldn't fully appreciate the sacrifice they were making at the time. The privilege aspect of this story isn't lost on me. We weren't refugees fleeing danger. We were fortunate enough to have choices. The immigration process isn't just challenging, it's financially exclusive. It's a privilege that looks like a hardship, wrapped in paperwork and tied up with an expensive bow. But that privilege came with pressure too. Every decision I made felt weighted with the knowledge that two people had rebuilt their entire lives so I could have options. No pressure, right? The American education experiment. Now let's talk about one of America's greatest gifts to an uncertain teenager: time. Back home, career decisions happened early and definitively. In my final year of high school, we had to choose our university path. And if you were an immigrant kid, well, let's just say the career counseling session was refreshingly short. Congratulations, you have 5 exciting career options: doctor, lawyer, finance, engineering, or IT. Choose wisely, because option 6 is family disappointment. And nobody wants that on their resume. I knew I was interested in biology and helping people, but medicine felt like putting on a coat that might not fit for the rest of my life. The family lifestyle, the hours, the pressure, I wasn't sure. But when you're 18 and everyone's asking what you want to be when you grow up, sometimes you just point at something respectable and hope for the best. I only remember selecting medicine because that's what I got accepted for based on my grades. It's like online dating but for careers. You swipe right on what seems reasonable and see what matches back. But here's where America worked its magic. 4 more years. 4 entire years to explore, to question, to change my mind without the world ending. In many places, that decision at 18 is it. You're locked in like you're signing a career mortgage. But American higher education said, take your time, figure it out. Maybe try some useful electives that have nothing to do with the path you originally thought of. It was terrifying and liberating at the same time, like being handed the keys to a car when you're not entirely sure you want to drive. And it worked. By the end of university, I knew. Not because someone told me what I should want, but because I'd had the space to discover what I actually wanted. I made the right choice for postgraduate studies. Not the safe choice, not the expected choice, but the right choice. Of course, one that could also pay the bills. Those American degrees, those little pieces of paper became like a golden ticket, not just for working in the US, but in other countries. The American passport opened doors I hadn't even known existed. I worked in Europe, lived in the Middle East, experienced cultures that enriched my understanding of the world in ways that I never could have imagined. It's funny how opportunity compounds. The education led to experiences, which led to perspectives, which led to more opportunities, like interest in a bank account, except instead of money, you're accumulating stories and understanding. And yes, the American income didn't hurt either. It meant I could help family members back home when they needed it, could travel to places that had once seemed impossibly far away. Financial stability isn't everything, but it sure makes generosity easier. Though I have to say, explaining to relatives why I chose to live in multiple countries when I'd finally made it to America was interesting. You moved where? But you have American citizenship now. Why would you leave? Because moving to America had taught me something valuable. The world is bigger and more wonderful than any single place, even a really good place. And sometimes the best way to appreciate home is to see what else is out there. The gratitude gap. Here's something that might surprise you. I've lived in Dubai, where the infrastructure makes some American cities look like they're held together with duct tape and good intentions. I've experienced healthcare systems that don't require you to sell a kidney to fix a broken arm. I've seen countries that do certain things, education, public transportation, work-life balance, objectively better than we do here. And yet, there's something uniquely American that's hard to quantify but impossible to ignore. Maybe it's the optimistic, I can do it mentality. Maybe it's how a country built by immigrants continues to argue about legal immigration, which is peak American irony. Maybe it's the beautiful, messy democracy of it all. The fact that we can criticize our government without ending up mysteriously missing. But I'll admit, I get confused by some things, like how putting an American flag on your front porch has somehow become an unpalatable political statement. When did patriotism become partisan? It's like saying you love your family has become controversial. I've met people from war-torn countries who still get misty-eyed talking about home. I've known people who escaped dictatorships and still defend their homeland's cuisine with the passion of a food critic. Love of country isn't about pretending everything is perfect. It's about caring enough to want it to be better. Here's the thing about being born somewhere versus choosing somewhere. When you're born into something, it's easy to take it for granted. It's like growing up in one house. You notice the creaky floorboard and the paint that's peeling. But you miss the solid foundation and the roof that keeps you dry. This isn't about toxic positivity or pretending problems don't exist. America has issues, big ones, systemic ones, problems that need addressing, not ignoring. But recognizing problems doesn't mean you can't also acknowledge blessings. It's like your relationship with your parents. Assuming they weren't completely toxic, which is an important caveat. Your parents probably got some things beautifully right and others spectacularly wrong. You don't disown the family because mom was terrible at math homework help or dad's jokes were criminally unfunny. You appreciate what they gave you while working to do better yourself. Countries are like families in that way, complicated, imperfect, but still capable of love and growth. I think about my classmates who came from the former Yugoslavia, escaping war and communism. Most stayed, built lives, raised families. They didn't stay because America was perfect. They stayed because it was better than where they'd been, because it offered something precious, the possibility of becoming better. That's what I want people to think about today. Not blind nationalism, not pretending problems don't exist, but simple gratitude for possibilities, for the chance to complain about your government without fear, for the opportunity to dream bigger than your circumstances, for the beautiful, chaotic experiment of building a society where people from everywhere can somehow become from here. My closing thoughts. So here we are on another Independence Day. The fireworks are probably winding down. The barbecue grills are cooling off. And somewhere in America, people are having heated discussions about everything from politics to potato salad recipes, which, let's be honest, can be equally divisive. If you're listening to this and you were born American, I hope today gave you a moment to see your country through immigrant eyes, not the rose-colored glasses that ignore problems, but the grateful perspective that recognizes possibilities. If you're listening as a fellow immigrant, I hope you felt less alone in the beautiful complexity of loving a chosen home. And if you're anywhere else in the world wondering what all the American fuss is about, well, it's complicated. We're a country built on contradictions, held together by hope and really good marketing. We are simultaneously the land of the free and home of the brave, and also the place where you can go bankrupt from medical bills and argue about whether pineapple belongs on pizza with the passion others reserve for the constitutional law. But here's what I've learned in my decades of chosen Americanness. Perfect isn't the goal. Better is the goal. And better requires both gratitude for how far we've come and determination to keep going. The American patriot isn't someone who waves flags blindly or recites pledges without thinking. The American patriot is someone who loves their country enough to want it to live up to its promises, not just for some, but for all. Someone who appreciates the foundation while working to repair the cracks. Now here's where I need your help. If this story moved you, if it made you think differently, if it reminded you of your own family's journey, or opened your eyes to someone else's, don't let it end there. Subscribe to this podcast right now. I'm serious. We're building something special in the shadows, authentic conversations that cut through the noise. Hit that subscribe button because every week I'm bringing you stories that matter, perspectives that challenge, and truths that heal. Share this episode. Send it to that friend who always complains about America but has never lived anywhere else. Send it to your parents who sacrificed for your dreams. Send it to someone who needs to remember that gratitude and criticism can coexist. These conversations are too important to keep to yourself. And comment with your story. I want to hear from you. Are you an immigrant who chose America? Were you born here and taking things for granted? Do you disagree with me? Agree completely? Have your own family immigration story? Drop it in the comments because the magic happens when we all contribute to the conversation. Whether you were born here or chose here, whether you're staying or going, you're part of the ongoing American story. That's pretty remarkable when you think about it. But that story only gets better when we share it, when we listen to each other, when we build bridges instead of walls, even from the shadows. This has been Lonnie's Night. I'm your faceless host, and I'll be back next week with another story that deserves to be heard, but only if you help me get there. Subscribe, share, and comment. Let's build this community together. Until next time, stay curious, stay grateful, and remember that the most powerful voices often come from the most unexpected places. Thank you.